going on, you guys? Kensu here. Street Fighter 6 Season 1 has come to a close, and quite frankly, we had a pretty decent season. We had some pretty decent characters here for DLC Season 1, but time to look forward to Season 2 since Season 2 is now here. That being said, there's some rumors kind of going around that there might be some pretty cool announcements at Summer Game Fest coming up pretty soon, not too far away from now. I had a few little predictions on who I think might potentially be DLC characters for Street Fighter 6 Season 2. Let's jump right on in and check out some of my personal predictions for Street Fighter 6 Season 2 DLC. First up, hailing from Street Fighter 4, the Capray. So the reason for my pick with the Capray is that she's a very unique character, and while she may share some similarities with Cammy in terms of visuals and maybe some special moves, she still has a very distinct and unique playstyle that's not been seen in Street Fighter since Street Fighter 4. Now, I do believe, it was a little rough that Capcom did tease her as somewhat playable in Street Fighter 5 story mode, but we didn't really get a chance to play as that new edition of her, so I think now will be a great time to actually put that new version of her in another game, maybe with some tweaks to fit Street Fighter 6. So yeah, I think she'd be a great addition, and she's the first up on my list. Next up, coming in from Street Fighter 5, Falk. Now, Falk to me, honestly, she makes perfect sense. I think she has a pretty cool playstyle as it was coming from Street Fighter 5, and it'd be really neat to see her play in this new engine for Street Fighter 6. Also, it makes sense story-wise, seeing as to how Ed has come back and her and Ed are pretty close. Not to mention, Ed is now also in the crumbled laboratory here that was last seen in Street Fighter 4. It just makes sense. There's nothing else to be said here. I mean, from a lore standpoint, it makes sense. I mean, Ed is shaping up to be something a little bit more important since Street Fighter 5 and Street Fighter 6. So I feel like Falk's kind of like a no-brainer for Street Fighter 6. Next up on my list, and I believe she is a complete fan favorite, also coming in from Street Fighter 5, is Menat. I think Menat was a really cool, and I mean really cool addition to Street Fighter 5, so I feel like she's also, much like Falk, kind of a no-brainer to bring her back into the fray. I think that she just has a super unique playstyle, and I'd love to see what they would do in terms of adding more to that playstyle in Street Fighter 6. If you're not familiar with her, she is the student of Rose. She does have some things that are somewhat similar to Rose, but not too much. She does have her own playstyle. She does have her own flair to her, so I think she'd be great. In addition, what I would love to see is Menat kind of stand on her own 2 feet, as opposed to just, everyone knows her as being, Rose's apprentice, but I'd love to see her kind of make her own path, make her own way. That aside, I think she'd be really great from a story standpoint, from a gameplay perspective. Like, Menat's got it, great fan favorite character, and I think she'd fit just perfectly fine in Street Fighter 6. Alright, now this next one, I'm not gonna lie, you guys, he's kind of another no-brainer as well, but the man himself, the original head of Shadowloo, and Bison. So Bison is kind of a shoo-in. With Ed coming back and with him in the ruined laboratory, they do show Bison's hat in the background. So it kind of seems like, since they included Ed, it seemed like it was a pretty much no-brainer that he was going to be back. But with Bison coming back, it makes me worry just a little bit. If he was to come back, of course, this is a predictions list after all. It does make me worry a little bit that if they bring him back, then they would have to bring Rose back. And I just mentioned about Menat standing on her own 2 feet. it just, I don't know, something doesn't sit well with me, because I feel like then their stories will be intertwined again, and then once again, as I mentioned before, it just doesn't really allow for Manat to stand on her own 2 feet from a story standpoint. Because if Bison's alive, then so is Rose. So unless Capcom decides to take a different route and like disconnect them in some fashion, we're most likely gonna see Rose again. And quite frankly, I'd rather have Manat than Rose, but I do have a strong feeling that Bison is coming back for Street Fighter 6. If not this season, at some point. He's the original boss of Street Fighter, so it kind of makes sense. Alright, now, one of my personal favorite characters, coming in from first and foremost Final Fight 3 and making her debut in Street Fighter 5, is Lucia. A big reason why I would love to see Lucia in the game is because there isn't really many Final Fight reps that are outside of the World Tour mode. I mean, sure, we have, you know, Kimberly, who does represent Final Fight by way of being Guy's apprentice. However, it still doesn't really sit well with me because Kimberly's still Kimberly. She doesn't really count in my personal opinion, but Lucia was originally in Final Fight 3, as I just previously mentioned, and I mean, her playstyle was already unique. I do think that they didn't do her the best justice in terms of her balance in Street Fighter 5, so I do feel like this is a great chance for them to kind of rectify that and kind of push her playstyle and maybe add some new things to her as well, because I think she's an extremely unique character to Street Fighter, and I think that she makes perfect sense to be in Street Fighter 6. So this one I'm definitely hoping for. I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Lucia, if at all possible, at any given point in time in Street Fighter 6's lifespan. Oh man, I know this one is probably not gonna sit well with a lot of people, but also hailing from Final Fight, making his debut in Street Fighter Alpha 2 is Rolento. Rolento is by far leaps and bounds one of my all-time favorite Capcom characters. His play style is unique. His design is pretty cool. I mean, just his whole demeanor is just, I love it. With that being said, he's another Final Fight representative that I would love to see make a return. He hasn't really been seen since Street Fighter 4, and I'd love to see what they would do with him in Street Fighter 6. Granted, I know he's not everyone's favorite in terms of play style, but I do think he will offer something unique, because he is one of the only other movement-based characters in all of Street Fighter. So I'd love to see someone kind of embody that external movement with by way of the command roll, the wall jumps and things of that nature, just to kind of help, you know, bait certain things out. So from a gameplay standpoint, I think it'd be pretty unique, but he might be a bit of a long shot, I won't lie. But I assume since the game is still held in Metro City, there's a potential chance. So he was one of the original bosses in Mad Gear, so we'll see. We shall see. And now for the final character in my predictions list here for Street Fighter 6 Season 2. This is a character that is beloved by so many. This character also helped me pave my way during the era of Street Fighter 4. This is none other than Crimson Viper. Viper is just by far leaps and bounds one of the most stylish characters that Capcom has actually ever created. She not only has a unique playstyle, but she offers something that's never really been in Street Fighter ever before, with the way that her super jump works with burn kicks. Like her entire kit is just, it just screams just unique. She's also just a character that's beloved by so many, not just by playstyle, but also by the way that she looks, her fashion sense. You know, she's also a mom, you know, so she's had some story ties in Street Fighter 5. It seemed like she was going to be playable in Street Fighter 5 as well, but much like the Capray and some of these other characters who were in Street Fighter 5 story mode, they didn't make the cut into the roster to be playable. So I think now would be a great time as any to actually feature C. Viper and introduce some new things to her playstyle, introduce to the new era of Street Fighter, because we've only really seen her in Street Fighter 4 and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, as these being her last entries into any kind of fighting game for that matter. So with that being said, I'd love to see her come back. I'd love to main this character once again and try to do some damage in the competitive scene as well, my personal self, but not just for me, but for the other fans as well who love C. Viper. I'd love to see you guys hit some buttons with her and see some unique things come out in the future. Yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to come from Summer's Game Fest. And even if none of these characters make it into the season 2, batch, I'd love to see any one of these characters make it into Street Fighter 6's lifespan, be it season 3, 4, 5, or however long this game, intends to be around for. I would just love to see any of these characters make it back. In closing, I would love to see, personally, some more Final Fight reps, strictly because this game is in Metro City. I do want to see some more old school characters, but also some new school characters as well. Because I think one of the few things that needs to be said is, like, while we love a lot of the favorites, it'd be really, really fantastic to see what other characters Capcom has in store. That's gonna do it here for this predictions video. If you guys enjoyed your time here, be sure to leave a comment and leave a like. Let me know how you guys are also feeling down there in the comments. Who are your predictions for season 2 and or even the future of Street Fighter 6? Let me know. Talk to me in the comments below. With that being said, you guys, I'm gonna get up out of here and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.